Let's continue. I remind you that you have a quiz on Wednesday. So remind me to give you the questions at the end of the session. And Wednesday you have a 20-minute quiz. For those who weren't here, you have access to the box where you have the audio recorded sessions. If you're lost, you book an office hour. So let's continue with this reconstruction of the Lebanese aesthetics from the writings of Walid Sadek and from mainly his writings. And last time we have seen the labor of missing. We said that Walid again he reiterates this kind of difficult position because when it comes to the missing, you are in the Lebanese Civil War and your uncle, father, mother, whoever, friend is kidnapped and he disappeared. In one of these, they used to come like waves. So you have a wave of kidnappings and people are disappeared and they disappeared until today, many of them. So what do you do with that? What can you do with or when you are in a situation where you have someone who is disappeared? And you have seen last time that the two positions that Walid is not very, or he's proposing a third position, he's not very sympathetic to. The first one is to busy yourself, to expand all your efforts in trying to bring the disappeared back. And you really believe, like Haji Touma and Jorez, I talked to you about them last time, you really believe that you can bring back the disappeared by investigating on your own, finding documents, making interviews, investigations, hiring a private detective, what do I know, looking inside their old belongings, and you really try to bring him back. And what Walid is saying is when you live like that, you're all the time haunted by the reappearance of the disappeared, or you want to provoke the reappearance of the disappeared. And of course, we know that they're not going to come back. This is part of the story. And in that case, all what you will find are sterile kind of documents, like the movie you saw last time. You know, you go, you dig, you find a movie reel that no one has developed yet, you develop it, etc., and there's nothing. Or you go, you dig for this hidden letter in the garden, and you read it, it's nothing. So what Walid is saying is that beside the proper investigations that needs to be carried out by the state, etc., and this is absolutely impossible given the politics of Lebanon, when it comes to 2 points. The first one is that no one will go and investigate the militias today because the militias are in power. This is one. And anyway, legally speaking, you cannot do that because of the law of 1991, if I remember well my dates, that granted forgiveness for all those who committed kidnappings, torture, killings during the war because they wanted to close the file and move on. So you cannot really go into the normal way, meaning claiming justice, investigation, etc. And you on your own, try it if you can. You will not get anywhere. So internally it's impossible. Externally with Syria and Israel it's also impossible because of what you know. It's very difficult now to go and investigate Syrian prisons or even Israeli prisons or whereabouts. So you have this kind of blockage. Yeah.
Can you repeat the second point?
Second point is that the international relations that make Lebanon dependent on dependent on Syria more or less, especially in the after-war years, and in a weaker position or in a weak position in relation to Israel, makes it almost impossible to investigate in that direction. So you are really blocked, and you have so this solution is not practicable. We said that the other solution is when you lament and you remain attached in a kind of never-ending melancholia to your disappeared, and you block your life on the disappeared, meaning it's over. You don't live anymore. You're just there clinging at the images, the memories of the disappeared. This would be the other line, which is the line of what we here call the past, more or less, being like inglued in the past to the point that you can't move on anymore, or the other one that needs to just move on. So these postures are not very, very practicable. So Walid is advocating for the third way, which is difficult to grasp as usual, because what he's saying is that dialoguing with the disappeared can be established as a capacity. See, it's a difficult, weird position, because what he's saying is that, if you remember the example last time of Burhan Alawiya's Beirut encounter, the guy starts speaking to his beloved as if he's gonna meet her. Then he decides not to meet her. Then he starts speaking and recording, still in a way remaining attached to leaving traces and the like. And last, he moves into a phase where he stops recording his dialogue with her missed beloved, meaning with his beloved that is gone now. And this is a capacity. And he says that he gets out of the orbit of the missing, and he really starts to speak in a new way, which is dialoguing with silence, which is one of these capacities, which is one of these weird capacities that one can acquire in these extreme situations left by the Civil War. Okay? You see, dialoguing with silence, the difficulty is to see that not as a melancholic, still attached to the past and only attached to the past kind of posture, and to see it as a new capacity. This is the whole difficulty, because in the movie, and I think this is what Sadek is advocating for, the guy is not then only talking about his love story in relation to her and how she was and how they were, and he's just gravitating around her. What he does is that he starts talking about totally different things. He starts talking about, I don't know, politics in general, poetry, he goes off road totally. And you see that here he's able to enter the disappeared and develop a kind of new way of speaking. It's a kind of dialogical soliloquy, which is a very weird form of speech, because usually as you dialogue, I say something, you say something, etc., or you soliloquize, or you speak alone and you reflect alone. But here it's as if you are reflecting alone while speaking to the other. And which is a capacity to gain, which is something to develop, nourish, etc. So we said last time that this kind of developing a dialogue with the disappeared is what Sadek called a collection of the uncanny, is a collection of the weirdly familiar. And this is a way out of the state of never-ending mourning or of investigation and moving actively into the future, because you accept the real conditions which are available on the ground in Lebanon. You don't just move away. Okay? So today, this is, if you want, the mourning is a labor of missing. I hope this is clear. The labor of missing is, most of the time, is related to intimate stories. Please, can you move apart? Move there. Yes. So you can do whatever you want on the back row besides speaking to each other. So I was saying that in this situation, the situation of the missing is a quite intimate situation. Your missing is usually a family member with whom you've lived, etc. It's localized there, not necessarily only, but you see, it's a kind of personal relation to this absence that you have and what you can do with that. Now, today we are moving into something else, which is called the labor of forgetting. It's not that missing and forgetting, they're a bit distinct. We're moving into something different, more public, by the way, more related to collective memory than to this, because most of the stories of the missing are really very painful and very intimate. Usually a father, a lover, etc. disappear. And this is more in relation to collective memory and the problem of how do you remember battles, martyrs, people who died during the war, but really as having a kind of official status, like they were the combatants of, let's say, the Communist Party or of the Kataib or of whatever Amal or whatever kind of party you are dealing with. So how do you really remember those? And here you have like an issue around how do we remember, and mainly how do you remember in a place like this one, as Sadek described it, which is a place of a protracted civil war, meaning the war is never ending. As always, you have outbursts of violence, assassinations, car explosions, battles again. It's never ending. So how do you really commemorate? I will not use commemorate. How do you remember in this kind of situation? And in here you have two tendencies. You have the commemoration tendency, which have in it many, many aspects. And you have the amnesiac, oblivious kind of tendency. So you have these kind of two tendencies again. And Sadek is going to propose a third one, which is the labor of forgetting, which is neither you forget nor you just commemorate and remember and make heroes out of those who died in battle. So if you look at that picture here, this is a Hawaiic monument, and this actually is very old. But you see why we are picking it here. It's way before Lebanon and even the Civil War. But actually, it's already there. Now, as you might know or not know, in 1916, after the First World War, you had all kinds of nationalistic movements of independence, and a number of Arabs claimed or wanted to claim independence of Lebanon and Syria, and they started to make kind of activities, revolutionary activities against the Ottoman Empire, and they were caught by al Jazzar, and he hanged them on the the Canon Square. It was the Canon Square, and when he hanged them there, it became the Martyr Square that you know. The Canon place, the Canon space, was actually outside of Beirut. The Martyr Square is outside of the walls of Beirut, and it was called the Canon place because they used to put the cannons there and fire the cannons there. Anyway, this is where they were hanged. And they are the martyrs. Actually, the 6th of May is commemorating these martyrs, even before Lebanon, before the declaration of official Lebanon. And later, when they declared the existence of the Grand Lebanon, when the mandate declared the first declaration of existence of the Grand Lebanon, they commissioned they asked Hawaii to make a statue to commemorate the martyrs. And he made that. So in this image, Walid describes it like that. He says, let us describe the monument again. Two women, a veiled Muslim and an uncovered Christian, with arms extended and hands lying on an urn said to contain the ashen remains of the martyrs. Their hands do not touch, but rather meet over the space of the dead, namely the urn. The monument is significant not because it partakes in a genre of art that claims to summon a collective national consonance, but rather because it stages the contiguity of two unnamables, the two not yet widows who linger, and the ashen remains of the not yet inhumed. Okay, so you have this kind of engraved in stone, this image of two men who are not yet widow because they didn't bury yet the ashes, meaning the corpses. And you have the ashes which are still there. If you remember mourning in the presence of the corpse, this is a kind of image that reactivate the concept that we have seen with mourning in the presence of the corpse, meaning you stay and you linger with the corpse, you don't just inhume. So, of course, Walid would be very interested in this kind of sculpture because here you see Hawaii, even before the war, in a way mourning or calling the nation or the young nation or the about to become a nation, calling the population to mourn in the presence of the corpse. It's like a kind of And this is when they are gathered in this kind of halted moment. Namely, the corpses of the martyrs that occupy still the space of the urn and therefore cannot be said to be completely interred and abolished. The not yet widows are with the not yet abolished object of loss. Okay, so Hawaii, he made that statue, and indeed it was, inaugurated in 1930. So events 1960, I think Great Lebanon is 1924, if I remember well, and then you had 1930 inauguration of the statue, and of course when they inaugurated the statue, you had all kinds of interpretation of the statues, because the French said this is a statue for the martyrs who fought against the Turks, against the Ottomans. The national Arabists, those who were for the National Arab Union, said that this statue represent and commemorate the fight for an Arab unity, and you had many readings of that. In any case, what interested is that you have here the image of a kind of melancholic stay, a melancholic mourning in the presence of the corpse. But this kind of mourning seems to be indefinite, seems to be like a never-ending mourning in the presence of the corpse, because, as you can see, the statue is there and there almost forever. Now, as you know, that statue was removed. Today, you don't see that statue in Martyr Square. And if you want to see what's left of that statue, you go to the Surso Museum, you have half of it. You have until, you just have, you have up, just the part on top. The two women without their feet. You have, that's that part of the statue, you can see it at the entrance. Huh? I don't know what happened. I'll tell you what happened, but I don't know why they lost half of it. But in any case, yes, I will explain why. So, what happened to that statue and why was it removed? Because,
People think it was too feminine.
Too feminine.
Because it represents women, not men. So
We have still a woman, by the way, in the Martyr Square. They look a bit like transgender women, but they are women. Okay, Martyr Square. You have the big figure is a woman. It's a woman representing freedom. So you still have women, but it's in these kind of lines. Actually, after the independence of 1943, the nationalists found it a bit too weak. A bit too weak, not necessarily women in that case. They found that it's too... Huh? No worries. If you want the woman, keep the woman. So they found it a bit too weak. So what it says, they found the statue a bit too weak and too melancholic and too sad. And it represents a Muslim and a Christian, and all of that is not in the spirit of nationalism. So in the wake of 1943, actually you had a very, very severe campaign in journals, magazines, whatever you want. And actually there was even a committee to take off and out what they called the weeping monument. The heroes of the post-43 Declaration of Independence. They didn't want to see this kind of monument where you have women weeping over an urn, and you have here the corpse, and they're Muslim and Christian, and all of these things. And they consider that actually, this monument is just commemorating and almost reifying the sectarian divide between Muslim and Christian. It's weak, it's not that triumphant, it's not heroic. And this is why they proposed later, they already began the critiques in the 50s. And at that date, when they started criticizing this monument, Hawaii, which used to live in Lebanon, he went to his village and he said, okay, I don't want to be here anymore, because he was really under attack from all sides, and he retired in his village. And since then, he stayed there doing some sculpture, writing letters and the like. And he retired, Hawaii. So, 50s, harsh critiques, etc. And the idea of replacing that monument with something more nationalistic, heroic, that commemorates now the martyrs of the French mandate, not anymore the Turkish empire, was cooking until 58. Now, what happened in 58, as you know, there were all kinds of upheavals. Nasser wanted to create the Arab Union. Many Lebanese were with him, many were against him. And you had the clash between Junblat and Shamuun. So you had the first clash between Junblat, the father, and Shamuun, which led to the 1958 battles, riots, revolutions, and many people died. As you know, they attacked the airports, they attacked Antari, and in the mountains you had many dead people between in the Chouf, between the two factions, the supporters of Shamuun and the supporters of Junblat. Between Christians and Druze, if you want, but back then it was more still under the cover. Yes, but it was still under the cover as supporters of Shamuun and supporters of Junblat back then. So even though, yes, it's a majority of Druze and Christian, but it happens that you had Christians among the Druze and vice versa, so it's not as neat as that. So, yes, but I will not go into, Yes, exactly. So this is, if you want to read about it, you can investigate about that. I will not do the whole history of Lebanon here. I'm interested, I do the statues only, okay? Which is fine. It's good to have the backup of a good someone who knows the history well. Me, I don't know it that well. So you have this kind of clash between Shamuun and Junblat, which is in its majority a Christian Druze kind of clash, but not really, because especially among the Communist Party you had many Christians, etc. You'll see why in a second. And in any case, after the 58 clashes stopped, in the year 60, this is when the project of replacing that statue, the weeping statue, with the heroic one became really urgent. Now, I hope you see how it works. This is why Shamuun pushed really hard to bring now good sculpture, if you want to call it like that. Huh? Yeah, and he brought from Italy Mazzacurati. So Mazzacurati, which made the other statues, the statues that you know, with the freedom standing. And this is the new statue. Okay? It's a bit sideways. I'll try to flip it. This is upside down. Okay, so now this is, you see, it's like generic figures first. This is the symbol of freedom, which is a woman. And here you have those who fought for the nation. These are generic figures. They are generic figures, and they are really figures like you can find a little bit everywhere. And what they're not the Muslims, the Christian with their local scarves and local attire. They are really like this kind of nationalistic, universal kind of thing. And here, Walid is really keen to insist that usually nationalism needs this kind of vagueness. If you want to talk about the national unity, you can't go into all the details of the sects and the confessions and stuff like that. You need this kind of simplification, which is a nation for everyone, regardless of the little differences and the little conflicts that you might be attached to. And this is at least what Shamuun wanted to give as a message, which is that the nation will triumph against all kinds of sectarian parties, so the nation will prevail. And this is how he opens the monument in the 6th of May of the Mazzacurati monument. Okay? Now, what's interesting is that a week later, meaning the 13th of May, if I remember well, so a week later, really, after a week from inaugurating this monument, Junblat inaugurated the Martyr Square in Buqata. I don't know if you know that monument. You know it? It seems that Shamuun won. So anyway, so Shamuun inaugurated this monument, and after a week, really, Junblat, the father, he inaugurated the monument in Buqata, which is a village bit around Mukhtara, actually, it was a place where you didn't have a lot of people, apparently, from what I read. And he made a garden, and this garden was the monument for the martyrs that fought for the communist ideas and an egalitarian state and all of these notions. So the Buqata monument that you can visit, by the way, it's in the Chouf. It still exists, but it was forgotten. It's a bit like the other monument. No one really hear about it anymore. So the Buqata monument is a monument which is quite weird, by the way. I don't know where to begin. So, and all these monuments are upside down. So the Buqata monument, you have weird thing, you have a Buddha. This is a Canon. And if you look here carefully, I don't know if you're able to see it. If you see, these are fish. And these are mollusks. And you have here a lotus. And then you have an animal, another fish, kind of dinosaur, and then the marks of the feet of man. Okay, so what is this? Really,
Evolution.
The evolution. Great. You see what Junblat did, and if you go to Buqata, this is what the guide will tell you. He tells you that actually, as you know, Junblat was quite versed into Eastern philosophies and into religions and into Marxism. So he was a very well-read kind of character. And this garden for the martyrs is actually aiming at showing that the revolutions that happened in the clashes with Shamuun are actually part of an evolution of animal into freedom, and it's a path of knowledge. And really, the garden is structured as a path of knowledge. So when you enter the garden, there's a stone, and on the stone you have the poetry of the Shabu Yawm al-Arad al-Hayata. You know the poem, if the people one day wants freedom, okay? And then you enter. Now, when you enter the garden, you have two pyramids like this one. You have two pyramids like this one, and if you look between the pyramids, here you see a kind of column at the end. And these two pyramids are the mystery of the creation. And anyway, you move on. So after these pyramids, which are the symbols of the mystery, you move on, and you move on to the evolution and the creation of life. And when you have man, you have this circle with this kind of Egyptian symbols representing the birth of the spirit. And after that, you move into a swamp, which is the world of materiality. And after the swamp, you move into a reflective pool, which is the world of the purified spirit. And then you reach a place where you have the deployment of the spirit represented by a bird. And the bird is here. This is the bird, and as you can see, there's a snake on the bird, and from what is known there, it's the unity of the opposite, so whatever it is, meaning you unify the opposites in the deployment of your spirit. And on top of all that, you have a place where you have all the religions surrounding this central pillar inside the frame. And on the central pillar, it's written Ahad, meaning the one. And you see, and the idea of Junblat was that actually he supervised the conception and the construction of this garden. The idea of Junblat was all religion lead to the same message, which is the unity and the haqiqa, meaning the truth. And all the purpose of humanity is to reach that truth. And when you reach that truth, it opens on the pillar, which is the celestial pillar. What is it? Anyway. So it opens on this kind of obelisk. So anyway, I hope you got the idea in general. these are other things that you can find in the garden. You see here's a symbol of yin and yang and the egg of the universe. You know, you have this kind of thing. Oh. So what is happening here? These are the tombs of the people who died. Now, among the tombs of the people who died, you have Christians and Druze, and among those who did these monuments, you have Christians and Druze, and they're very, very keen on showing that it's not a pure 100% Druze kind of garden, because the message, as you can see, is really above, at least the message is above all kinds of sectarian confessional divisions. Now, the thing is that, maybe you don't remember, or this fell really out of history, there used to be commemoration at this garden, mainly by the Communist Party and, in this case, the Communist Party and the followers of Junblat, even after the assassination of Junblat the father. And when you had the assassination of Junblat the father, it became the place where you commemorate Junblat and his allies, and more or less against the rise of the Kataib Phalange, and you had these frictions between these two parties. So at the end of the day, it's a commemorative kind of monument too. Now, this is what Sadek is saying. What does it mean? It means that even though in this kind of linear history that now goes way beyond the national religious kind of confinement, he's beginning with, the whole evolution into the revolution, it remains, as Sadek says, a historical linear time, and at the end of the day, these times which are historical and linear, they have a tendency to commemorate the past in order to win in the future. I think this, a Marxist from the Communist Party will not tell you no. Tell you, yes, we do our monuments to commemorate the past in order to win in the future. And I'm not saying that out of the blue, because if you read the post-Junblat, the father assassination stuff that used to happen in the garden, they used to read about those who died for the Junblat cause, etc., and for the Arab cause, and they used to commemorate these dead in order to be able to be prepared for the next conflict with the, to make it simple, the Phalange and the Christians in the mountains. And you had this kind of repetition, Sadek says, repetition of this kind of tension, because the memory is anchored in these events, and you have heroes, so you read the names of these people, and you have to remember them to be prepared for the next round. So, what Walid is saying, to go back to the conceptual, what he's saying, you see, when you commemorate, you are bound to repeat, which is very interesting, which is exactly the opposite of what we usually say. Let's remember in order not to do it again. You know that song. Let's remember in order not to do it again. And what Walid is arguing for, I hope you read his text, what he's arguing for is that if you remember, you will do it again. This is, if you want, what he's saying. If you remember all those who died, which are your relatives, with all the emotions that comes with it, joining it with all the battles, atrocities that you know about, you are bound to repeat, because you are simply here preparing, remembering, not forgetting, and when you don't forget, you are bound to repeat, which is the reversal of what we usually hear. So what Walid is saying is that all the endeavors that aim at remembering the war as it is, via monuments, or via archival stuff, or via whatever tool you use, they fix memory. They fixate memory. And when you have a memory that becomes rigid, this is when you are bound to repeat. You see, because memory is not a rigid container. Memory is something that actually forgets, transforms, toys with the thing, associates things which have nothing to do together, and hence there's a living process of memory, which is very different from the dead reification of memories. Now, what does it mean? It means that, I don't know if you have seen movies by Orson Welles or no, nothing. Okay, it's not a problem. Forget, memory, if you try to remember something, usually you have what you call the dream work. If you heard about Freud dream work, and in a dream work, the images, they start to fuse together. If you are dreaming at night, your uncle can become a dolphin, and I don't know what the dolphin can become, a statue, whatever, saying anything. So what I'm trying to say is that you can have this kind of morphings between the different elements, your different memories. Now, this would be a living memory and not a rigid memory. What Sadek is saying is that monuments, be it the nationalistic monument of Shamuun, or the Buqata monument, which is like a universalist monument of Junblat, they both have in common a conception of time which is linear. This is number one. And number two, in this linear time, the monument is going to rigidify the past in order, they say, for a better future, but what Walid thinks is that for the repetition of the past, for a future vengeance that will come from the past. So this is, if you want, the first position, which is under the reification of the past. So under the reification of the past, you have this first posture, which is monumentalization. Monumentalization of the past under the guise of a monumentalization of the past as a heroic past in view of a radiant, victorious future whose other name is vengeance. The other name of this future is vengeance. So what is Walid really advocating for? We'll see the third position, the position of the future later. What is he advocating for? He's advocating really for a site-specific workings of memory. So I will show you what he is defending. He's defending something like that. Now, this is an installation by Abi Lama again. You remember Abi Lama, the guy with the blemish? So, Abi Lama here, he made an installation in facing Antilles on the beach. So after the war, this is really one of the first artworks that came after the war. This is in 1992. It's even before the Sanaya Garden. And Abi Lama, since then, he made this installation on the beach facing Antilles. There was, I don't know if it's still there, a public beach, and it was filled of rubble and stuff and damaged stuff and whatever you want. It was the after war. And what he did is that he removed part of this rubble and he built this barbed wire fence. And in this thing here, he installed little sculptures inside the barbed wire fence. What are the sculptures that he installed?
They're made out of.
Yeah.
Aren't they made out of war?
Yeah. They're made of war stuff, as you can see it. This is kind of explosive. You see it, the little bomb here. You have a little bomb here, and you have commercial stuff. So what he did actually, this is another one, where he mixes commercial entities with warlike entities. So he makes objects. He's a sculptor. He works a lot with steel, by the way. He makes objects which are half war, half commercial. Because in 1992, to open Lebanon to the global market was already in the air. And the position of Abi Lama was to mix together the traces of war with the commercial discourse and to create these weird objects. Oh. So what is he saying, Abi Lama? What he's saying is that when you are in a site like the beach of Antilles, you have to dig, you have to excavate its past, and you have to show that actually, even in the rubble that you're digging there, you will find bomb shells, you will find shells of guns, you will find all kinds of things, and all of these things you're going to recycle them and make them integrated with the supposed discourse of the future in order to make people aware that this is a land where you had a war and you had layers And inside these layers, you will find dead bodies, shells, all kinds of things. And this is why you need to excavate the place in which you are in order to bring out all of these residues, remnants, traces of war, and not just do like the Hariri discourse in 1992, which is let's eradicate the city center from all its traces and all whatever is there. Let's just expose everything which is left and move on. So as a critique of the liberal discourse and as a critique of the heroic discourse, what Abil Lama is proposing is to fuse together and to make these hybrids, which are his sculptures. Yeah.
So the same point of view of Walid.
Yeah. So this is really one of the allies of Walid. Walid said this is a great work because it shows an awareness of the depths of the place in which we live. It's not a place, it's not like Dubai. Dubai, really, you dig, you don't find anything. I'm not saying it's bad. We wish we were in Dubai because you don't find a corpse when you dig. You don't find a bombshell and you don't find stories which are unfinished. On the other hand, here, wherever you dig, you have a problem. Seriously. You have like stories that haunt these places. And the tabula rasa of Hariri back then was to deal with the city center a bit like Dubai dealt with Dubai, as if we are in a desert, and let's create the desert, and then we create a new city on top of this desert, and we move on, global market, money, fun, indebtedness, and today, it's a crisis. Okay, so, but in any case, this was the vision, the project. So what Abil Lama is doing is this. Now, you see, this is a dream work. This is a memory work. Why? Because first, you see these fusions, concentrations, these displacements. The bomb is something else. The wheel is something else. The chair is used differently. And this is the dream work or the work of memories that Walid is talking about. I hope you're getting what he's saying. What he's saying is that if you want a memory which is alive, you don't reify. Like these are our dead, our martyrs, and we will always remember them until we get you. What he's saying is that you move into a kind of an impersonal collective memory. Here you don't know who is dead, who shot what, and what is really the at stake in that. What you have is this kind of anonymous memory, and in this anonymous field of memory, the memory work will consist in joining together objects, fusing them, and doing that kind of work. So as you can see, Abil Lama is very critical when it comes to the liberal attitude, and he's very critical when it comes to the commemorative attitude. And what he's proposing in place of these two attitudes is a work of memory that is going to create new visuals, new discourses that are still anchored in a place without being reduced to the personal feuds of this place. I hope this is clear. Now, there's another work, I hope you read about it. It's called Half Man by Walid Sadek. It's in the Sanaya Garden, 2005. So 2005, Walid himself made an artwork for the Sanaya Garden. This work was called Half Man. Now, I don't have images, unfortunately, of this work, but this work consisted in cardboard, like the Sahha thing, and he cut in the cardboard pieces of body. So you have a hand, a leg. Actually, you have also a waist and two cut leg with an erection. So you have pieces. And you can wonder what the erection is doing there. The thing is that in the Sanaya Garden in 1984, if I remember my dates correctly, Gemayel signed the execution of Tarraf. Amin Gemayel signed to hang Tarraf in the Sanaya Garden. It was, I think, the last one hang in the Sanaya Garden, if I'm not mistaken. Tarraf is a guy who was accused, but there are not certain proofs on that during the war, he chopped his landlady and her son. So during the war, they say, this guy, which was a student in law, a law student, he chopped his landlady, but Sadek says, and many other documents says that it wasn't very, very clear if he really did it or not. They say that he confessed, but he confessed under torture, so it's not an acceptable confession. And hence you have an issue on that. It's an unresolved matter. And the problem is that Jumayl signed the execution to death, most probably under, again, community pressure. And they hanged that guy. So what Walid is doing, he's reconnecting to this story. And now he's dealing with this kind of anonymous body and the memory of someone who was hanged here in a situation which is a bit a situation outside of the law. And as you can see, what he did is that he fused the victim and the butcher. You see the parts of Tarraf, and actually he's supposed to have cut his landlady. And this is what you can call the work of memory. Memory really is going to condense things, fuse things, reverse things, and stuff like that. Memory is not this kind of just preserving the thing as it is. When you remember these events, especially unresolved stories, things start to fuse together, they start to get deformed, they start to contaminate each other. So I hope this is clear. So you see, what I'm trying to tell you is that what Walid and Abi Lama are proposing here is to, in this first attitude, is to be anchored in the place, to really be aware that you are in a place where you have unfinished stories. This is number one. And then instead of remembering as it is, instead of remembering the events as they are, and disclosing them, in the most faithful way, what you need to show is that memory takes possession of these stories and starts to modify them. And this would be a living memory. I hope this is clear. A living memory that really acknowledges what's there, makes a work on what is there, and actually makes a kind of monument in quote, or a counter monument that can only be remembered. Because now when I tell you these stories, you can only again recreate the counter monument in your imagination. So the installation of Abi Lama, by the way, which is called Where Are We? Where Are We? His installation, after he's done with his opening, 1 month where you can visit the installation, he left it for rubble again. So he left the thing where it is for it to be recovered with, rubble, whatever, dust, sand, and to decay with time. And what happens of these counter monuments that Abi Lama did, or Sadek, we don't even have the things anymore. They disappeared in thin air, meaning they were destroyed, these cardboards. What happens is that the only access to this work becomes our memory of them, and this is a collective memory. I talk to you about them, you say, oh yeah, there was that thing there. And this is a living collective memory and not anymore a rigidified collective memory. Yeah.
That's the way that's how we move on. So
Huh?
That's how we move on. So he took memories from the past,
Mm-hmm.
and then he let go.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how it moves.
Yeah.
See how it moves? It moves via a whole process of distortion. So you take a story, it's distorted with another story or with another discourse, the liberal discourse and you tell the story, it's distorted with someone else recalling it, etc., etc. And this creates this kind of living collective discourse memory about what happened in some places. Now, what you have to see is that these works are really site-specific. This was on the beach of Antilles, and the other one was in the Sanaya garden. And Walid calls these works the site-specific or the excavation approach. The excavation approach had 3 properties. First, it needs to dig these stories which haunt the place. You have to know that here you have bombs, bomb shells, dead people, whatever. Second, they are transient work. They are works that disappear with time. And third, they are made by the workings of memory. So these are, if you want, the 3 characteristics of this approach. Now, the exact opposite of this approach, the other extreme, so you have commemoration, living memory, and oblivious memory, meaning the memory that forgets totally. It's a guy, I think, that you know. You remember these? No? So this is Karam. This is Karam. Remember these? No? Maybe you don't. So it's the 90s, at one point, these things appeared everywhere in Beirut. So you had this one here, you see it? And this is what Karam calls the archaic procession. You had these figures here.
Which
This is 1995. No, 1997, it's over 3 years almost, between 95 and 98. And then he puts them in the Martyr Square. Please keep it a bit quiet. So then he installs them in the Martyr Square, and you have this kind of, playful figures. Playful figures. I'll show you another picture. These are playful figures, nice, cool things. And he also installs them in Armenia here, and you have some of them in Tokyo, and some of them, they're all over the world now. And Walid really doesn't like it. He doesn't like that because he really thinks that this is like full liberalism. And why is it full liberalism? It's not because he's selling them out. This doesn't matter. It's not because he's selling his statue or not. It's not the issue. The issue is that the way he uses these sculptures is a way where you literally empty the visual, the place, and the discourse from any reference to real history, to what is really going on in here, and you just deal with visual snapshots. So you have these kind of generic figures that can be anywhere. And actually, if you look at the guy and the girl, Walid says that vaguely the guy is holding a hammer, and the woman is vaguely holding something akin to, like in the Russian, the communist flag, the thing. I always forget the sickle. Yeah, vaguely, and you have this kind of vaguely boyish figure with a vaguely girlish figure with animals, all this kind of vagueness, and with these kind of snapshots. You really like. You have this kind of mixture of dialogue of confessions together and this kind of dance where everyone is in peace with everyone else, and you neutralize the whole history, the whole stories which are there, which are unfinished, a bit painful, and the like. So I'll read to you what Walid thinks about that. So about the sculptures of Karam, Walid says, the monumental extruded metallic figures, this is what you see, are presented as elements of what the artist calls an archaic procession. Figures that go deep into an underground to reach the places where the city's memories are to be found. This sentence is from Karam. So Karam really thinks that these figures goes deep into the history of Beirut, and this is where the memories are to be found. You see, it's a kind of archetypal memory. So practically it's a memory of, of no one, or of maybe, I don't know, it goes back to, anyway. So conversely, but equally emphasized, this archaic procession is said to communicate in an archetypal language that goes beyond borders, cultures, and creeds. I think you know that discourse, no? Like, let's go beyond the confessions, beyond the history of Lebanon, beyond all of these murders, and dance together. And you see it, especially today with the revolution, this kind of cliches of the sheikh dancing with the priest. You've seen these things. So it's a bit in the air. I would say is that you really strip from all kind of weight everything that happens here, and you limit it to this kind of dance of culture, dance of confession, dance of I don't know what. Still, the diversity of the shape, you are told, is born of the artist's response to the Lebanese confessional or socio-political disparity as a cause for division and war. So the official discourse of Karam is that actually he's really replying with this kind of lightness to the divisions of the war. Nevertheless, the various and different metallic figures follow the same course and share the same destiny. This is, if you want, how he justifies his things. On the other hand, I hope you feel the difference between this and the installation of, let's say, Abil Lama. There you feel there's a weight, there's a heaviness. And actually, Abil Lama turned on a generator, a very loud generator next to the installation to put light on it. Not only to put light on it, because you have to be annoyed when you're inside. Why you have to be annoyed? Godard did it later many times. In Godard's movie, I don't know if you know Godard, when he makes his movie, you have annoying sounds, because Godard says, I need to wake you up. Why do I need to wake you up? Because usually you go to movies and you look how beautiful it is, music, images, colors, you sleep, you eat popcorns, you go back home. But when you have a critical project, when you want to criticize society, to wake the people up, you need to annoy them in a place or another. This is why Abil Lama used to use this generator sound, which are all the time there, making you remember that this is not a dream. Even though it's a dream work, even though if I make you a chair with a bombshell and with the steer wheel of a helicopter, of a destroyed helicopter, it remains, it's not a dream. This is your reality, and these pieces are your reality, and you have to face it. So this is why he needs to break the dream effect. Okay. So the other extremity is that this is like a dream. This is like figures floating in the air with beautiful lighting, with whatever you want. And you really forget about anything. Actually, Solidaire commended, Solidaire was the patron of these works when they had a crisis, a kind of economical little crisis. The stocks was going down. And they called Karam to make this kind of, it's like a publicity, like these sculptures that are dancing on top of buildings, to bring the people to Solidaire and to see that there are someone in Solidaire. It's not like, like to gather people around that project. So in any case, they were the they are the clients of that. Okay. So to conclude, so now I hope you see the positions when it comes to public sculpture. This is what you're doing today, public sculpture during the war. If you want another title. So how do you do public monuments during the war? You have now these three options. You can do commemorative monuments, and here we've seen three. You have the never-ending weeping, and in this case, Sadek is not very keen on that. He says it's better than Mazzacurati's heroic statue. It's better than the evolutionary statue of Junblat, but it's not yet a living memory, even though they are mourning in the presence of the corpse. I hope you're getting the... Why? Because that statue doesn't allow the workings of memory. It remains the same forever. Okay? So you have these three positions. I think if you want to classify them, you will have the nationalistic monument, then you have the evolutionary Marxist monument, and last you have the weeping local kind of monument. But all of these things, they have a problem, which is that they are all commemorative monuments, meaning they fixate memory instead of letting it move and transform and become a living collective memory. You have what they are proposing, Sadek and Abil Lama, which is monuments that talk to the living memory. Monuments that can only be remembered, monuments that in themselves, in their form, are already made by the workings of memories, and monuments that excavate and go deep into the layers of our memory, which is the memory inhabiting the places in which we are. And last, you have the oblivious monument, which is a kind of advertisement campaign to say that Lebanon will be able to integrate the global market and we will become rich and stuff like that. Okay, this is the last monument, which is a bit amnesia, completely disregarding the specificity of the site in which it is and the workings of memory. Okay. So to conclude, there's a last relation to the monument. A last relation to the monument that you can find in other works by Sadek, etc., and Tony Shakar and many other people, and Bilal Khbez. I will talk about them. which is the following. You see, in his text, Walid says, he says that installations like the one you saw by Abil Lama, this is an installation, meaning you put all kinds of things together in order to say something, an installation. Now, installation are what Jameson characterizes as a mixed media, meaning you mix media. You have text and you have sound and you have all kinds of things. And an installation is defined by an artwork where the mixing prevails on the media. I hope this is clear. So media, for example, is painting, sculpture, cinema. These are mediums. And an installation is something where you're going to mix the medias. And actually, the mixing is more important than this or that media. So what Walid says is that actually, what happened in the post-2000 or around the 2000, the site-specific was 2000, 2005. What happened later, or around that, what happened is that artists start to invade other domains. So they start doing works of art in the street, in the newspaper, in books, in all kinds of mediums. And the work that Walid proposed in relation to the monument, because you have all kinds of things here. You have little booklets that have nothing to do with the monument, but there is a work of art that Walid did which is in relation to the monument. And the work is called Because I'm Bigger Than Picasso. This is Walid speaking, and his title is Because I'm Bigger Than Picasso. You know, I don't know if you went to the opening of the Picasso at Surso. You went there? No? You know that the Picasso came to Lebanon, not in person, better than his person. He came in his works of art. You heard that? Yeah. It was here in the Surso. So it's really amazing. I went to the opening. It was like full. I've never seen so many people on an opening, never ever in my whole life. It was like packed. You couldn't walk. And you had shawarma, and you had music, and you had the whole thing. And it's amazing, no? Like Picasso, which is, I don't know, he brings two, three paintings, mother and child. I think they came from France or something like that. And you have 2-3 paintings, mother and child by Picasso, and you have, like, it's cracked. Yeah, the people are there. Anyway, all the other exhibitions about Lebanon, art, politics in Lebanon, you know, installations by artists who really try to tell you something, no one is there. You know. You go there, you're alone, which is very good, but anyway. So he's saying, I'm bigger than Picasso. Okay, I hope you're getting a bit. He's saying, okay, because I'm bigger than Picasso, and he did this tiny booklet, it's this big actually, a black little booklet, and on each page you have this monument. I don't know if you recognize this monument. Yeah. So Hafiz al-Assad obelisk, yeah. And this one is devoid of mysticism. This is not the astral column of Junblat. This is just an obelisk which is next to the Safar al-Kuwaiti, if you want to go see it. Okay? So there you have the Assad monument. And it's there to remind you that Assad did a lot of good things for Lebanon. And you see, it's a tiny book. This is the scale of the book. And next to the Assad thing, you see here, you have a text. And these texts, that I can't read now, actually there are like texts that he brought from all over the place. And so this is the booklet. And the texts actually are just texts. They are really like you read. It's not that he wrote the text. He wrote a text from here, a text from there, etc. Depending on the mood or whatever. Text of poetry, text of politics, text of whatever you want. And what it says in the beginning, you have the references if you want to see the references. But it doesn't matter because what he really wanted to show is that, you know, when you flip the book, you see Assad monument, and you read all kinds of things next to it. You read, I don't know, a poem for the flower, you read the chronicles of a guy buying shoes, you read whatever you want, and you have the Assad monument all the time in your face till the end of the book. So what Walid is saying is that actually what he's putting here as a montage is that you have this monument which is all the time the same, doesn't speak, serious, commemorational, like a dead person in its authority and seriousness and obelisks kind of posture. And in the face of that, what do you need to do? What you need to do, you, the subject, imagine you now, you are in the face of the real Assad, the father, came back from the dead. Okay, he's like a monument, and you're nothing, literally. Like you are nothing. And what Walid is saying, facing these monuments that we have, they're all over the place in the Middle East. You have each guy is a monument. Be it Junblat, Shamuun, Jumayr, you have like monuments on top of each other. So what do you do in face of these great characters? What you can do is literally babble. You can do is just say anything. You can say whatever you want in the face of the monument, as long as you say something. As long as you're not dispossessed from your speech and turned into a mute, admiring subject. What you need to do is regain your subjectivity, your life. And for that, you can borrow all kinds of things, but the important thing is to oppose silence with speech, oppose untouchable figures with babble, oppose death with life. So it's a performance. Okay, understand? This book, for me, is a performance. Actually, it's an enclosed performance where you have a never-ending joyful babble against this kind of very serious, rigid monumentality which is there staring at you forever. And I think this is interesting in this regard. The texts themselves are not like what needs to be thought about. What you needs to see is that he did this montage. He did putting this with that. I'm able to speak in the face of the monument where I'm not supposed to speak. And this is an enclosed performance. I think this is one of the few performative works of Walid where you really have a staging of a performance. So this is how you can deal with these monuments if you want to be a kind of activist, active kind of response. Now, a last one, and I'll conclude on that, just to show you that you could miss your performativity. If you take Tony Shakar is an architect and a thinker that wrote a lot and thought a lot about the Lebanese war, and he contributed a lot in the Lebanese art scene. He used to work with Walid Rad and all of them, and he has also a lot of his own work, so he's part of this gang. And in the same line, what Shakar did, he did a piece called Everything Solid Melts in the Air, which is a quote from Marx, which is nothing solid will remain. And what Tony did is that he did this map that he used to distribute for free in the year 2000, I think. And he used to put on it quotes from different texts, because the problem with Tony is that the bird view vision of a city, which is the maps that you usually see, rigidifies the city and it simplifies it, and it doesn't really give the complexity of the living in the city, etc. Now, I hope you're getting this opposition. So for him, these views of the city are like this dead monument, and he tries to do something by bringing quotes from other authors. The problem, Walid says, is that the quotes that he brings are still about space, and you start feeling that he's explaining to you something about space, and it's not anymore a pure opposition. It's clear, or I repeat? You can't repeat, it's very simple. The quotes that Tony brings are about urban thinking and what you should do with the city, and all kinds of quotes and references about urbanity. And it looks like a critique of the way we represent the urban space, and it doesn't look anymore like this clash between monumentality and a free speech. So the solution of Sadek, at least, is that if you want to really speak in the face of the monument, the speech as such should be absolutely irreferential and absolutely free. I hope you're getting what he's saying. Which means that this speech itself should be like absolutely unrelated to the monument, or else it can become like explaining the monument or at the service of the monument. I hope this is clear. Is it clear? Yeah? Okay. So, I have to give you the questions. But before giving you the questions, I'll just show you two images, because I searched for them and I did this kind of thing. So, just to illustrate the working of memory, Walid mentions this painting. This is the flame of Marsyas. You know, Marsyas is a mythical figure that was, they removed his skin because he was punished by I don't know which god. And I think they've built a music instrument with his joints and stuff like that. Anyway, so when Walid talks about the working of memory, he tells you, you know what? It's like Marsyas upside down. This is Marsyas the painting. This is Marsyas upside down. Did you see this kind of shift? This is Marsyas upside down. Marsyas is painted by Titian. And what Walid is saying, if you want to deal with these things in the wall, there's this kind of little shift that needs to be created that makes it alive or part of the living memory, and not anymore part of this kind of dead memory. Actually, when you flip it up, you see he starts looking at you in a weird way. Okay? So anyway, he referred to that. Do you have questions on that? Okay? So you can start doing your dream works. Okay? Very, very serious. I will give you soon. Yep. You see me at the end of the hour. So you can start doing the dreamer, because I will send you, or remind me to send you, the questions for your exam, for your big exam. Because that too, you will have the questions at home, and you'll do it at home, the paper. You'll have 3 options to do the paper, but remind me to send it today or tomorrow. If I don't, send me an email. Someone sends me an email, and I will. So, the questions for your quiz, which is after tomorrow. First question. You have to explain the difference between, you have to explain the labor of mourning in the presence of the corpse, just the labor of mourning in the presence of the corpse, and how that opposes inhumation and mourning. How it opposes inhumation and simple mourning. Really, you have to write, 1 page where you condensate the first problem. Question number 2, you have to explain the labor of missing and how it opposes lament and the latent. If you remember, this is what we did last time. Lament, which is you remain, the picture of your father on the wall and you cry the whole day. Latent is when you investigate, you want it to happen, which is more the active, proactive thing you do if you are, in Europe or something like that, where the state is with you. Question number 3, you have to explain the labor of forgetting and how it opposes commemoration and obliviousness. Question number 4. You have to explain the difference between modernity and postmodernity as you have seen it in the introduction. Okay? So you prepare these at home. You bring one of you or all of you on a piece of paper or on your computers these questions, and in class on Wednesday I'm going to read one of these questions. And you sit on your chair and you write your answer as you have prepared it at home. Okay? It's 20 minutes. You'll have only one of these 4. Okay? It's 20 minutes, but you just need to answer that. Because you don't write everything, etc. You need to be able to clearly explain the 3 positions and the position of women. So for the others who weren't here, you see me now.